Welcome to the training and instructional video for use of the TSP Procedure Kit with ThermoChem HT series devices. The ThermoChem HT-200 and HT-2500 devices are both compatible with TSP Procedure Kits and can be used for open, closed, or laparoscopic HIPEC cases. The HT-200 is available worldwide and the HT-2500 is available in Europe. Additional required items needed for the HIPEC procedure includes sterile water for the device water bath, perfusate bags, and the all-inclusive TSP procedure kit. If the device has been in storage, some setup may be required. Initial pre-setup may include positioning of the monitor, the side tray, and the heat exchanger bracket. The IV hanger rod can also be attached at this point. Make sure the power cord is fully inserted into the socket in the back and also into the wall receptacle. The power cord and adapter should be appropriate for the power receptacles. Local power requirements are considered prior to the shipment to the ThermoChem unit. The water bath should be filled prior to powering up. Open the water bath drain first to confirm the water bath is empty and have a basin to catch any residual water from a previous case. When the drain tap is closed, open the water bath door and slowly fill with 2 liters of sterile water. The power switch is on the back of the unit above the cord socket. Power the device on and wait for the monitor to show the boot up process. This should take less than 1 minute to complete. The ThermoChem has reusable components stored in the pocket on the side of the device. Please note these items are not to be discarded after the case and should be differentiated from the disposable kit components. This includes the blue temperature probe extension cables, the heat exchanger temperature probe, 2 water lines, and the fluid reservoir bracket. The fluid reservoir bracket is attached on the front, on the right side handle. The height can be adjusted during the case as needed for outflow adjustment from the patient. The heat exchanger temperature probe is attached at the connector panel. Connect the black end of the probe by carefully aligning the pins inside the plug to the receptacle. Once seated, turn the end of the plug clockwise to tighten. The water line hoses can be used interchangeably for the hot or cold connection on the device. The larger end of each hose is used to connect to the device. Lift the spring collar and click into place. Connect the blue temperature probe extension cables at the connector panel into the color-coded receptacles. Depending upon physician preference, 2, 3, or 4 cables can be connected to the device, and each cable will connect to a disposable patient temperature probe. Set aside sterile packaged TMP1034 temperature sensor and TSP3005 spiral tubing for use in the sterile field. The TSP procedure kit consists of the pre-assembled tubing, reservoir, and heat exchanger to be attached to the device, and sterile items specifically for the surgical field. Items for the surgical field are contained inside sterile pouches for transfer to the surgical field. Inflow and outflow tubing and temperature probes are individually packaged for use in the sterile field. The waste bag is used for disposal of the patient fluids once the case has been completed. The waste bag should be connected to the procedure kit system during setup. The three-way stopcock with luer lock connectors will be attached to the top of the fluid reservoir and will be used to introduce pharmaceuticals into the system during the case. The pressure sensor is attached to the connector panel for measuring fluid pressure inside the TSP kit system. High pressure readings can indicate occlusion in the system, which may require troubleshooting. When the device is running, warnings will appear if pressure exceeds preset limits. The first alarm will sound at 491 millimeters of mercury. Current pressure levels are displayed on the monitor home screen in the blue text box. To prepare for removing the TSP procedure kit from the tub, undo the fasteners from the fluid reservoir and the heat exchanger. The fasteners are very strong. Do not pull the fluid reservoir or heat exchanger out without loosening the fasteners, as this could damage the reservoir. Here are the steps for mounting the TSP procedure kit. First, place the plastic tub in front of the device. Remove the fluid reservoir and place it into the black fluid reservoir bracket. Place the tubing for suction in the side tray. Hang the filled tubing with spikes on the IV hanger rod and clamp both the filled tubing lines until needed. Lift the heat exchanger out of the tub and make sure the tubing lines are untangled before placing the heat exchanger on the silver heat exchanger bracket. Place the tubing for the pump housing on top of the pump for attachment later. Before removing the recirculation pack from the tub, close the clamp to the shorter tubing. Place the recirculation pack in the side tray. The tub contains TSP procedure kit product information labels that may be needed for billing or charting purposes. Place the fill tubing on or near the IV hanger rod. Insert the pump tubing section into the pump housing using the following steps. Open the pump housing door. Use the tubing connectors with cable fasteners as a guide for proper placement of the tubing within the pump raceway. The connectors and cable fasteners should both be outside the pump housing. Use the colors on the tubing to match the colored dots outside the pump housing as a guide. Insert the right side of the tubing first by opening the yellow tubing gate to allow room to insert the tubing. Feed the tubing through the pump raceway by turning the pump counterclockwise. Open the yellow tubing gate on the left side to allow for the other end of the tubing to insert. Check if the pump head turns freely. Close the pump housing door. Next, connect the heat exchanger to the water bath system using the following steps. Attach the water lines to the heat exchanger by pulling the spring collar down and snapping it into place on the underside of the heat exchanger. An audible click should be heard. Test the connection to see if it is secure. When attached correctly, the water lines will be parallel to each other and not crossed. The gray temperature probe from the connector panel on the device connects to the anterior port of the front of the underside of the heat exchanger. Insert the pin on the probe and twist to secure. Connect the pressure sensor to the disposable tubing system. The connection point is at the lure lock fitting located on the tubing on the exit side of the pump. This is the left side of the pump with the red dot. Connect the waste bag to the inflow line at the shorter tubing of the first Y bifurcation. Close the clamps until needed for use at the end of the case. If suction or vacuum is used, connect the tubing to the hospital suction system. Clamp the suction tubing when not in use. The three-way stopcock with lure lock connectors are attached to the top of the fluid reservoir. The stopcocks can be used to inject pharmaceuticals into the patient fluid system. The patient perfused solution will be lactated Ringer's USP or another physiologically compatible solution as determined by the physician. Prime the system with 2 liters. Total volume required for the procedure can vary for larger or smaller patients. Place the solution on the IV hanger rod and connect the solution to the filled tubing. Fluid will drain into the reservoir by gravity. Set the water bath temperature on the home screen. Set the initial temperature to the desired level by tapping repeatedly or holding the plus button. When the temperature is at the desired level, touch the Start Water Bath icon on the screen. Observe the water bath temperature rising on the screen inside the white outline of the device. Start the pre-warming of fluid through the heat exchanger by touching the Start Heat Exchange icon on the home screen. Observe the water flow through the water lines and heat exchanger. If there is air in the water flow, relieve by manipulating the heat exchanger out of the bracket to clear any bubbles, and also by gently tapping the exchanger to assist the process. Initiate pump flow for the perfusate in the TSP procedure kit by touching the power pump icon on the home screen. Move the pump control slide approximately halfway. Check the disposable tubing system for leaks and ensure all clamps and caps have been securely closed. Observe fluid flowing through the TSP kit tubing system, including the recirculating pack. Observe the pump speed on screen. 2,400 milliliters per minute is the maximum. If air remains in the patient fluid side of the heat exchanger, the air can be evacuated via the debubbler lure lock on the top of the heat exchanger. Loosen the lure cap to evacuate the air, then firmly retighten the cap. Patient data entry is possible if desired in order to link the case data to the patient. Touch the picture of the computer keyboard in the white area of the home screen. Use the on-screen keyboard to key in desired information for the case. Using sterile technique, the OR staff will pass needed components to the sterile field. The assembly of the sterile field components involves the setup and placement of the inflow and outflow tubing, temperature probes, and spiral tubing. The number of these individual components varies depending on which TSP disposable kit was purchased. The example here is for the TSP 2011 procedure kit. The OR staff will transfer the inflow and outflow tubing, cannulas, temperature sensors, and spiral tubing to the surgical field using proper sterile technique. Components are separated according to function. Assembly of the outflow tubing involves tubing that contains a blue, green, or yellow stripe on the tubing. These colored stripes identify the tubing as outflow. The spiral tubing is first placed on the distal end of the outflow cannula. A temperature probe is inserted into the side of the cannula. The distal and proximal ends of the spiral tubing are used to secure the temperature probe to the outflow cannulas. This process is done for all outflow assemblies. Assembly of the inflow tubing involves cannulas that contain a red stripe on the tubing. The red stripe identifies the tubing as inflow. A temperature probe is inserted into the side of the cannula. The probe is secured to the inflow cannula in one or two places using a tie. This process is done for all inflow cannulas. Pictured here is the open coliseum surgical technique after insertion of inflow-outflow cannulas into the patient. After the inflow and outflow cannulas have been prepared, connections are made to the device. Before beginning the connection process, make certain the roller pump has been turned off and the tubing is clamped. The red inflow tubing is passed off the sterile field for connection to the heat exchanger inflow line. This line also contains an identical red stripe. The patient temperature probe is connected to a temperature probe extension cable. This temperature probe extension cable should be connected to the red temperature port on the connector panel. The green and yellow outflow tubings are passed off the sterile field for connection to the fluid reservoir. Make certain that each tubing connection to the reservoir is secure. The patient temperature probes are connected to the temperature probe extension cables. While not necessary, these temp probes on the blue, yellow, and green tubing can be connected via the extension cables to the corresponding color on the connector panel. Inflow and outflow tubing from the recirculation pack are handed to the sterile field for connection to the short inflow-outflow drain. Again, confirmation that the pump is off should occur. The tubing going to and returning from the clamshell pack is clamped. The clamshell is opened and presented to the sterile field. OR staff in the sterile field removes the tubing coil for transfer into the surgical field. The sterile, non-sterile demarcation on the tubing is pre-marked with tape. Once on the surgical field, the coil is separated using the quick release fitting. The short inflow cannula is connected to the inflow line, which is identified with a red stripe. The short outflow cannula is connected to the outflow tubing, which is identified with a blue stripe. Patient fluid flow is started by first unclamping the inflow tubing. The roller pump is powered on and set to half speed. Please note, a reserve level of fluid should remain in the reservoir. Outflow lines are opened and return flow is observed. Observe markings on the container. If necessary, mild suction is briefly applied to clear any airlocks in the outflow lines in the open Coliseum technique. Per physician direction, adjust the pump speed to the desired rate. Hospital staff will add the chemo mixture or other medication. The medication can be introduced into the patient fluid through a syringe or an IV bag at the three-way stopcocks on the top of the fluid reservoir. After the medication or chemo is added, start the treatment timer by pressing the timer button on the home screen. A transcribed log or additional clock should be utilized as a backup method of timing. HIPEC treatment duration for cases can vary greatly depending upon the chosen protocol. Many published protocols indicate an inflow temperature between 42 to 43 degrees Celsius. with corresponding outflow temperatures generally between 41.5 to 42 degrees Celsius. Water bath temperatures may need adjustment during the case. Patient vitals are monitored for maintenance of safe core body temperature. Note that a higher pump speed will help maintain a minimal temperature difference between inflow and outflow. Close observation of the fluid reservoir levels are necessary. Adjustments to reservoir height, outflow occlusion, and pump speed may be needed if levels increase or decrease during the case. At the conclusion of the treatment, a hospital-approved hazardous waste container is utilized for disposal of the tubing and fluid. Unclamp the line to the waste bag and clamp the red inflow lines to the patient. This will direct all flow to the waste bag. In an open coliseum technique, suction or vacuum can be applied to the disposable system to speed up outflow to the fluid reservoir from the patient cavity. When the fluid flow from the patient is complete, the roller pump is turned off. The heat exchanger and water bath are also turned off. Before disposal of the patient fluid system, close any clamp that may allow for fluids to leak or spray during removal. The inflow and outflow tubing from the patient is removed and handed off the sterile field for disposal. The blue patient temperature probe extensions are detached and are kept for future use. The IV bags and the fill tube lines can be disposed with the TSP system. The fluid reservoir and the heat exchanger and associated tubing are all disposed of according to hospital procedure. The tubing is carefully removed from the roller pump. The water lines and heat exchanger temperature probe are disconnected from the disposable heat exchanger and are kept for future use. Disconnect the pressure sensor from the device and dispose with the procedure kit. If case data retrieval is desired, insert a USB storage device into the USB port on the connector panel. Touch the off icon on the home screen to initiate the data retrieval. On the next screen, press Export Patient Log and wait for the data to upload to the USB storage device. When the upload is complete, power down safely by touching Shutdown on the screen. Wait for the permission message before switching off the device on the back of the unit. Seeing the "It is okay to power down the system" message on the screen is necessary before powering down on the back of the device. After properly powering down, unplug the device from the wall electrical outlet. Before storing, secure the power cord to the device. Drain the water bath and fold the monitor down. It is very important to drain the device. Do not let water remain in the device beyond the case. Troubleshooting guidance can be found in the operation manual for the ThermoChem unit. Please contact ThermaSolutions for support, device information, or additional troubleshooting.